There is a receiver available right now for under $2 million who brings exactly the size and physicality this offense has been missing all offseason, and the Raiders have the cap space to sign him today. Adam Schefter just confirmed that another receiver wants out of New England, and the price is a fifth-round pick. Max Crosby's recovery timeline just got a concerning new update, and a veteran lineman buried by the wrong system is walking into camp with a real chance to prove he belongs. Raider Nation, if you bleed silver and black, stay right here. The most credible voice in NFL reporting just put a name on everyone's radar, and that name is Kayshon Boutte, because Adam Schefter went on his own podcast on June 2nd and said flat out that he expects something to happen with Boutte this summer. Schefter said Boutte has not been at the Patriots' offseason program, that he has been interested in a trade, and that at some point this summer, there will be action. That is not speculation from an outsider with an agenda. That is the most connected insider in this league telling you that a move is coming and that Boutte wants out. Now here is why the Raiders need to be the team that makes that call. Last season, Boutte played 397 pass snaps for the Patriots and posted a 70.9 overall PFF grade. Solid production for a receiver in a limited role. He hauled in 33 catches on 46 targets for 551 yards and 6 touchdowns, while averaging 16.7 yards per reception and generating 40 yards after the catch. Those are not backup numbers. Those are numbers from a 25-year-old receiver who has never had a true featured role in a passing offense built around him. The Athletic's Robert Mays made the case earlier this offseason that the Raiders could acquire Boutte for a fifth-round pick. Not a first, not a second, a fifth. That is essentially a free swing at a young receiver with real production who fits perfectly into this organization's youth movement alongside Fernando Mendoza. And the situation in New England only makes this more urgent. The Patriots just traded for a receiver and already had Romeo Doubs on a massive deal. Boutte's path to playing time in that building has essentially closed. He wants out. The price is low. The Raiders need receivers. This is the kind of move that John Spytek was built to make. For those who prefer the free agent route, Sports Illustrated's Gilberto Manzano also pointed to Deebo Samuel as a fit for Las Vegas, a hybrid weapon who would complement Brock Bowers and give Mendoza a reliable target with real versatility. Samuel is still available. The options are real. The question is whether this front office is going to act before the window closes entirely. The most important injury update of this entire offseason just landed, and it involves Max Crosby. And what ESPN's Dan Graziano reported changes the entire conversation about this defense and about the trade speculation that has been swirling around this franchise for months. The timeline that everyone was operating on, a return to practice in June or July, may no longer be realistic. Graziano wrote that from everything he has been told, Crosby's full return could come in August or later. August or later. That is not a minor adjustment to the recovery schedule. That is a significant development that affects how this entire offseason has to be evaluated. Here's the context that makes this hit even harder. Crosby was headed to Baltimore for a pair of first-round draft picks earlier this offseason before the Ravens backed out. And the reason they backed out was medical concerns about his surgically repaired left knee. The same knee. The one that is still not ready for him to practice on. And Graziano made the point that any team considering trading for Crosby right now is inheriting $59 million in fully guaranteed money over the next 2 years, because his $29 million salary became fully guaranteed in 2027 since that Ravens deal fell through. That is not a small number for a player who turns 29 in August and whose durability coming off this knee surgery remains genuinely unknown. Graziano was clear. He would not expect trade talk to heat up again until Crosby actually gets on a field and proves he is healthy. Now here is the part that Raider Nation needs to hold on to through all of this. Crosby himself spoke to reporters, and his words told you everything about where his head is. He said this injury has forced him to take a step back and rest his body in ways he never has before. He said he has only known one speed his entire life: go. And for the first time, he is being forced to grind differently, stay calm, and trust a process that does not involve him being on the field every single day. And then he said something that should mean everything to this fan base. Everyone knows his love and appreciation for this organization. That never changed from day one. And right now, he is exactly where he wants to be. That is a man at peace with his situation. That is a player committed to this rebuild. But the knee is real, and Raider Nation cannot afford to pretend otherwise. The Raiders have cap space, a physical hole in the receiver room, and a solution named Gabe Davis, a veteran receiver whose projected market value sits at just under $1,600,000 and who brings exactly what this offense is missing right now. This is not a luxury signing. This is not a bold trade that costs draft capital. This is a calculated, low-risk addition that fills the most glaring structural gap in this entire passing attack for a price that is almost impossible to say no to. Here is what the receiver room currently looks like. Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, Jack Beck, and Dante Thornton Jr. are all speed and slot options, athletes who win with quickness, route running, and separation. What this room does not have is a true X receiver, a big-bodied, physically imposing perimeter threat who can win contested catches, dominate one-on-one situations at the boundary, and give a young quarterback a reliable target when the defense takes everything else away. Davis, at 1 meter and 88 centimeters and 102 kilograms, is exactly that profile. He fits Clint Kubiak's outside zone and West Coast offensive philosophy in a way that none of the current receivers on this roster can match. In that scheme, having a physical X receiver who can execute play-action deep shots and win in single coverage is not optional. It is what makes the rest of the offense work. And Davis brings something else that gets overlooked in this conversation. He is widely recognized as one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL. For Ashton Jeanty, a running back who is being compared to Christian McCaffrey by his own head coach and who is expected to be on the field as much as possible, having a receiver on the outside who can seal edges and create running lanes adds a dimension to this running game that does not exist right now. The inconsistency concerns about Davis are real. He has had games where he disappears and drops that have cost his teams in critical moments. But in Las Vegas, he would not need to be the primary option. With Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer commanding attention from linebackers and safeties in the middle of the field, Davis would find himself in exactly the coverage situations where he is at his best. Single coverage, space to work, and a quarterback who needs a big target on the outside to keep defenses honest. At under $2 million, with $22 million in available cap space, this is the move. This is the no-brainer that this front office should have already made. Raider Nation has been asking for a physical receiver all offseason, and the answer is sitting right there waiting for a phone call. The offensive line competition this summer has a name worth paying attention to, and that name is Jordan Meredith, a 28-year-old undrafted free agent who went from one of the most surprising performers on this roster in 2024 to one of its biggest liabilities in 2025, and who is now walking into a completely different situation that could change everything about how his story ends in Las Vegas. The numbers tell the story clearly. In 2024 as a guard, Meredith posted an 80.8 overall PFF grade, a standout performance that nobody saw coming from an undrafted lineman. In 2025 as a center under Pete Carroll and Brennan Carroll, that grade collapsed to 57.7. He went from allowing 1.5 sacks and a 1.2% pressure rate to giving up 4 sacks and 20 pressures. That is not a player who got worse overnight. That is a player who was put in the wrong position, in the wrong system, under the wrong coaching staff, and paid the price for all three at the same time. The Raiders' decision makers are banking on exactly that explanation being true, and the evidence supports it. The move from guard to center was forced and mismanaged. The Carroll regime's offensive line approach was widely criticized as incompetent at best. And Meredith's natural skill set, his lateral movement, his ability to execute reach blocks and get out in space, his agility to take on linebackers and defensive backs in the second level, is almost perfectly suited to the wide zone scheme that Rick Dennison and Clint Kubiak are installing right now. Dennison's system rewards exactly what Meredith does well. The Raiders re-signed him to a 1-year, $3.52 million tender, the highest single-season earnings of his career, which tells you this front office believes the 2025 version of Meredith was a product of circumstance, not talent. With Tyler Linderbaum locked in at center, Meredith returns to the guard competition where he belongs, battling Jackson Powers-Johnson, Spencer Burford, Caleb Rogers, and Trey Zune III for the 2 starting spots. The best-case scenario has him winning a starting job outright. The most realistic case has him as quality depth who can plug into multiple spots without the offense missing a beat. Either way, 2026 is the year Meredith gets to find out what he actually is when the system and the coaching finally match the player. Here is the honest picture of where this franchise stands right now. The foundation is real and the direction is right, but there are still decisions that need to be made before this roster is ready for what Week 1 is going to demand. Butte wants out of New England, and the price is a 5th-round pick. Gabe Davis is sitting in free agency for under $2 million. Both of those moves are available right now, and both of them fill a hole that this offense cannot afford to carry into a regular season. Crosby is committed to this team and committed to this rebuild, but his knee is real, his timeline is uncertain, and the trade conversation is going to follow him all summer until he steps on a field and proves he is healthy. That is the reality, and pretending otherwise helps nobody. And Meredith is walking into training camp with the system and the coaching staff he needed a year ago, and if Kubiak and Dennison can unlock what he showed in 2024, this offensive line gets even deeper than anyone is currently projecting. Mandatory minicamp starts June 9th, training camp follows in late July, and everything being decided between now and then defines what this team looks like when Miami walks into Allegiant Stadium for Week 1. The pieces are close. The window to finish building is right now. This front office has been smart all offseason, but smart is only worth something if it leads to action when action is needed most. Drop your take in the comments. This space belongs to everyone who lives by just win, baby, and never walked away from the silver and black.